Guys, I've got an update from Lake Mead. It's actually two, and they're both critical when you combine them together. One is the Bureau of Reclamation. We have the statement on the time that they think it's going to take to repair this cableway system and the cost and the other data involved in that. The other is that we are 6 weeks away from Lake Mead dropping to the elevation of 1,035 feet. That's when all of the 12 turbines at the top are turned off. They put out that they have 5 low head turbines that will kick in, or that will be the ones left in place, but one is down for repair. And the way that they repair it, and I mentioned it, guys, is that they need this cableway. With the Bureau of Reclamation, we're going to look at that data saying that a minimum of 2 years. Now, it's not just one of the low head turbines in the base of Hoover Dam that has problems. One is down, and that's the chamber where they dropped the 9-ton door in yesterday, guys, to seal it off. But now they've indicated in the reports that they have 2 of the other 4 remaining low head turbines that need major work, and they were planning on getting the parts using the cableway to lower in the heavy gear. Guys, they can't put all of the heavy parts required, not that door, not the heavy turbines that we're seeing, in a basic elevator. They have elevators that can carry basic gear up and down in people, but not the heavy gear. And one thing about this cableway, it is one of the largest ever built, and it is unique. Every part and piece is unique. You can't order spare parts. And so it's going to take them a while to get to that point. And so we have a race here. And they really waited too late. The only thing I can say positive about the current situation is they got that door in place Monday, and then this thing went down. It was too old and it needed repair. They were already looking at getting the contractors in and the bids before they lowered the door. And that was going to happen, guys, believe it or not, in just this upcoming September. We're not that far away. But this happened. And the good part is they appeared to get that door in place before they had equipment problems. And then as they were running it back, I guess, and they were going to do tests, they had the malfunction. But it's a good thing that that happened before the door was left hanging halfway in or set astray and you couldn't get to it without getting this thing repaired right. But it would also be needed for the heavy weight of the turbines. Again, the elevators that go up and down for lightweight stuff could not handle it. They had to build this one-of-a-kind cableway system for this dam, and it is going to take quite a bit of repair, including all of these cables. Those cables are 3.5 inches thick each, and I think there's 6 of them, and all of that has to be replaced. Updates have to be fitted, all kind of stuff done. And we'll look at the Bureau of Reclamation's report and the estimates that they're looking at. But the race is already lost as far as getting all of this done before the 6-week crisis comes up. Guys, with only 4 turbines left at that point, you've lost 80% of the hydropower that goes downstream from Hoover. You've got 2 other ones that are obviously weak. They were going to lower down parts and repair them, kind of step it across the system there and repair these low heads. But now that's impossible. And what they will have to do, guys, without any of the repairs, and really they were way too late in my estimate. I'm not an engineer, not for this type stuff, but they waited too late. You know, they were occupied with other things, I guess. But immediately they came out last year talking about getting the replacement for this 5th low-head turbine. But no action's been done. They're just now getting the $52 million that was going to be allocated for the low-head turbine repairs. But now they've got to, I guess, get more money for this major repair here, because it's not a full replacement, but it just about would be easier to do it. Now, guys, I think you can find this by typing in HireGov right there. I don't think that means they live in Colorado necessarily, but it's HireGov, and it's going to give you the information that has been released by the Bureau of Reclamation on this project. And it goes back, like I said, they were preparing already to get these repairs bid on, and they wanted the bids ended by this September. And then they would go from there to, I guess, the funding process and all of that, and getting it all in place again, 2028 or 2029. It says the U.S. Department of the Interior, the Bureau of Reclamation, the Interior Region 8, the Lower Colorado Basin, they call LCB, is seeking to award a firmed fixed-price contract for the refurbishment of the 150-ton cableway crane at the Hoover Dam. They're saying that the project aims to ensure the operational integrity and safety of the crane, which is critical for maintenance activities at this significant infrastructure site. Yet it's the largest reservoir in the nation. I think Powell is second. But the principal components of the work include, and again, this is the bid going out, but you'll get the idea. It says they want to replace the 6 3.5-inch cables that you were looking at in that image. Replace the 2 1.5-inch button line cables and button line tensioners. Now, I don't have the exact length of these cables, but they stretch all the way across the canyon. So nothing's cheap anymore, and especially when you get certain entities bidding. It says they want to refurbish the existing carriage. They want to install the already fabricated slack carrier. They got to replace the sheaves. They got to lubricate all wire ropes, lubricate the hoist house, mechanical components, and tower sheaves, retension the track cables, replace the hydraulic hand pump and lines on the Nevada side tensioning system, load test the cableway crane, perform an annual inspection, and certify the crane. You know how long bureaucratic red tape takes, don't you guys? So you've got what they call the period of performance, and that's the time they get all, by the time they get all the bids in, approve one, and get the job done. The contract, it says, will be performed from September 30th, 2026 to December 29th, 2028, right at the end of the year. And so, again, we're out over 2 years, and you've got 6 weeks before we have a crisis with hydropower that is the safety valve of the desert Southwest total grid. Guys, you realize, and I know you do, that when you lose 80%, then all of that weight is shifted, and it has already started to the other grids that are already overloaded. Some of the big grids now are reporting today, guys, of line sag. Line sag happens because of extreme temperature and an extreme amount of amperage going through the wires. They're having to take over now because of the lower water drop at Mead, which is 1041 and change. That is causing them to lower the pressure and the output because of cavitation problems. But the water itself lowering takes it per foot is about 5 megawatts. So every time you drop a foot, you're losing. But what they're seeing today is an extreme strain on the outside grids around Mead. It could always come in the late evenings, guys, when solar power was going down, people's air conditioners were getting cranked up, and kick in that hydropower almost instantly, unlike any other power source. And it also, again, was the cheapest. But that is lost. So now at that exact time that's critical, and that was the safety buffer of Lake Mead, that is going to be gone. It's going to be automatically, when the lake hits 1035, drop to the 4 remaining turbines, and we know 2, maybe 3 need repair. The other top 12 will be mothballed. And so all of what we're looking at, to be honest with you, the river will be back to what many call the run of the river in 2 to 3 years. I'm saying that because it probably will happen early next year. It's going to happen at Mead very quickly and Powell. The reason I say that is because the rate that the water's dropping now, especially now with this wind and evaporation rate from the triple-digit heats we're seeing with no nighttime cooling, there's no way to stop the drop. I've looked at the new current satellite images of where the high pressure is and where the moisture is getting erased away from that area, and it is the desert Southwest. We got a little bit of break, got a few showers in that helped stabilize somewhat for a few days, but that protection and that buffer is just about gone also. And the weather outlook does not look good for additional rain. Normally you would be getting the monsoons, but I'll show you that satellite image and you can let it speak for itself. Now, another bit of good news is that it's going to take a couple of years, maybe longer, to fix the cableway, which may be just an attraction by then. But in a couple of weeks, they're saying that the engineer came in yesterday, Wednesday morning, and said it's going to take that amount of time to fix it, but I can stabilize it in a few weeks. And if they do that, then they can open up the tourist parking lot, and which is also the access parking lot for the workers and bringing in equipment, and the highway that goes across the dam itself. Now, this is the I-11 bridge here, and you have to actually exit off of this one now to go down into the Hoover Dam curved bridge. But they will open up this area, which is under the cableway, again, to tourists, to the surface entrances, for the workers, and for the bridge in maybe 2 weeks. He says if he can get in there and get the plan right to stabilize the cableway, that will reopen. And guys, looking at the Lake Mead and Lake Powell data, it looks like they finally decided to try to balance it some way, but they're going to save Mead first. Now, the reason I say that is looking at what they've done over the last 14 days, they've cut the drop per day down in half. But how have they done it? They have continuously drawn 9,000 to 10,000 feet or cubic feet per second from Lake Powell upstream. And as they release here 8,000, sometimes much more, to supply downstream needs. And look, in the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days, and this ended yesterday, we're seeing a drop of the outflow downstream to the ag sectors, private sectors, and the hydro. So, like I said, you can look at these 5 numbers in outflow and tell that the grid has already started to shift and that some of these power lines are sagging now. We're reaching a critical point, guys. Water, hydropower at the worst point of the year. And again, the cableway has to break at this point. It more than likely had to do with the excessive load, which if it was in good shape would have probably been no problem. But being 90 years old makes a big difference, and not being used much lately. It may have been better before they put any load on it to go ahead and start the replacement. But it takes time. They were looking at a time clock, and it takes a lot of money and bureaucracy. And by doing this, by, again, getting a lot of inflow pretty steady from Lake Powell, they've slowed down. The Lake Mead is down to just under a foot over 14 measurements. Normally this is 2 feet. But because they got a little bit of rain and they're draining Powell, they've steadied the numbers quite a bit to where you actually saw a 0.01 foot rise on Sunday, July 29th. And again, you got a little bit of rain, and you also, from Las Vegas, guys, you got their treatment plant water. Once it's treated and all of that goes back into Lake Mead there. And the reason I say that is because you've got the third straw at the bottom of Lake Mead. It will be the last place that water can be drawn from if all holds up. But that's about 10% of all of the percentage, guys, of Lake Mead's discharge. In other words, if you took what they're putting out and then what the third straw is drawing into Vegas, that's only about 10%. And a lot of that comes back in. And another factor adding into Mead's kind of steadying out is the fact that you've got 3 tributaries, I think, guys, that are between them and Lake Powell. I think what they call it, the Muddy River, and a couple of other places that got some rainfall, and so that helped steady that temporarily. But looking at Lake Powell, guys, we're seeing them cut back drastically. They started out, at 5 and then a day here, and sometimes these are glitches in the daily data that's acquired, and what they'll do is double up the next day or something to balance it all out. But right now you're getting, just as of yesterday, you're getting in about half from Flaming Gorge that you're putting out to Lake Mead. The rain is over right now, and I'm going to show you that satellite image and show you from ground level up to 30,000 feet. There's no moisture over the desert Southwest. The clouds that we were seeing for the last few weeks are just wisp in the morning before it even starts to warm up, and then they're gone. But anyway, this is a telling story here. They're continually supplying for 14 days right at 7,800 cubic feet to Mead. But their inflow, guys, is very unsteady. Flaming Gorge is getting drained, and they're not going to have much help in the next upcoming, I'd say, 2 weeks for any rain at all in these areas. And I mentioned the grid. Let's look at what they call the real-time grid metrics and reserve tracking. With ambient temps across the desert Southwest peaking at over 110 today, the physical transfer capacity of the grid is dropping at the exact moment consumer demand is surging towards its 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. peak. That's when Mead could step in because solar power was diminishing, the sun was getting lower, different angle, and Mead could replenish this reserve. But right now we're looking at the current reserve margin. It says the Western Interconnection operating reserves have narrowed significantly, hovering around 6 to 8% above baseline demand, which was already high. If an unexpected trip occurs at a major thermal plant, or if reserves drop below 5%, the Southwest Power Pool, called the SPP, and Casio will be forced to immediately escalate to what's called the EEA Level 2. And check this out, guys. We're already seeing transmission overload. It says high voltage lines like the Path 46 corridor. And this carries electricity from the Colorado River generators into Southern California, are running at over 95% of their total thermal capacity as we speak, and we're still getting hydropower out of Mead at this point. The physical wires are literally sagging from the heat and the sheer volume of electrons being pushed through to them to replace Hoover's missing megawatts. Now, as I'm doing this, it's 1 p.m. Central Time, which is 11 a.m. Mountain Time where we're talking about this. So by the time they hit the, again, 5:30 to 7:30 p.m., or what some call 4 to 8, and they're at 95% now, then it's not going to take long before you see major rolling blackouts or just forced physical blackouts. And what they call the looming evening pivot, guys, is the concerning time. It says the true danger window opens in a few hours as solar output drops off the grid between 5:30 p.m. and 7:30 p.m. The lack of Hoover's rapid response hydro peaking units means operators will have to execute a flawless, massive ramp up of the gas plants authorized under Sunday, and this just came out for 17 states on Sunday, the DOE Emergency Power Order. Now, just imagine how this narrative is going to change when Mead hits 1035 in maybe less than 6 weeks. And right now in this heat, guys, replacement power is scarce. Wholesale electricity prices at major trading hubs like Mead near Las Vegas and Palo Verde in Arizona, which is the nuclear plant about 40 miles west of Phoenix, they have gone vertical, the prices. So standard off-peak power usually trades under $50 a megawatt. Right now, real-time peak pricing for late afternoon delivery this afternoon, guys, has spiked $800 to $1,200 per megawatt hour. So from 50 to 850 to 1250 per megawatt hour as utilities engage in bidding wars to secure out-of-state reserves to prevent localized voltage collapse. And when the government stepped in, we'll look at that, the 17 states, they're going to have to change the way they're doing business. Now, right now, the grid is operating basically within the safety net. I guess sagging lines and all are within that net, but any sudden mechanical failure or line trip will almost certainly push the system over the edge into an emergency declaration before sundown. Again, this is today's information, and the heat is increasing. We're not anywhere near being through with summer right now, and we cannot forget the 6-week possible deadline. Now think again, let me just back up. We'll have to switch immediately to already compromised low-head turbines. And before we get to 1035, guys, at 1038, the feds are going to step in because of different factors. But one is that they're going to have to make some control changes. They're going to have to be the ones to handle it, because at 1038, we're going to start to see a big decrease in pressure at Hoover Dam because of the problems with cavitation as the water gets lower. It can pull air into the turbines, and that will destroy them. And they're already having that problem at Mead with the existing low-head turbines, which there are 4 left. And they've had to do what they call, I think, aluminum strip welding. But the blades are so sensitive, they have guides before it hits the turbines. And the guides are adjustable to adjust the flow or whatever, depending on the pressure that you need, and control the air going through to prevent cavitation. But those welds and all they're having problems with that. And if you can't close those guides, then the thing runs wide open. So it's not a good situation. It's something I would not want to have been the engineer of. And I mentioned this 17-state emergency grid proclamation, guys, and it came into effect 4 days ago on the 26th. But it says it's an emergency electricity order issued by the U.S. Department of Energy under Energy Secretary Chris Wright. The order was prompted by extreme, widespread summer heat waves and high electricity demand that threaten power grid reliability across the central and western U.S. Now, this directive is authorizing Southwest Power Pool Incorporated, the regional transmission organization managing the electric grid across a massive multi-state area, to dispatch specific, otherwise idle or backup generation units. To mitigate the risk of rolling blackouts and maintain grid stability, the use of these backup resources is authorized as a last resort before or during an energy emergency EEA Level 3, the most severe alert stage, which signifies imminent or active controlled power outages. The emergency order went into effect again 4 days ago on July 26th and runs through August the 3rd as the region deals with intense thermal stress on power systems, high cooling demand, and lower than normal output from some variable energy resources like wind. Now, this order focuses on turning on already existing idle backup power plants located directly within the 17-state region. The Department of Energy estimates there are roughly 35 gigawatts of unused backup generation available nationwide that can be tapped electronically through the power grid. Now, I don't know how this works with the huge manufacturing and some of the big centers that we see, but also they're saying when one state needs electricity from the other, the energy is sent virtually, now listen, instantly as electrical current through existing high voltage interstate transmission lines. The Southwest Power Pool manages this complex electronic balancing act across its grid infrastructure. Again, it does make you wonder how the larger companies and industries are being affected, if at all. Now, those 17 states, guys, that are in this SPP footprint is Arizona, Arkansas, Colorado, Iowa, Kansas, Louisiana, Minnesota, Missouri, Montana, Nebraska, New Mexico, North Dakota, Oklahoma, South Dakota, Texas, Utah, and Wyoming. And it's going to be quite interesting to see who handles the extra cost involved, how that will be spread out. Now, let's take a look at the satellite that I'm talking about. And this is no wind school, but it is the total precipitable water. This is not a model, it's a map of current data. The green, blue areas you can see in the Pacific Ocean, you've got a storm here, a much more powerful storm setting right out here, 150 to 160 mile per hour winds. Anyway, here, desert Southwest, very dry. It has been since late May. Now, let me say this. Last week, and maybe for 10 days, I saw moisture creep into the desert Southwest. Some have become a little more blue, and we saw some rain come in, and that buffered some of the lake elevations there. But now with that high pressure moving over and bringing record heat into where we're at now, it's 99 degrees regular temp, but it's triple digit degrees in the desert Southwest. But I'm looking at surface moisture. Let's pull this up again. I'm looking at what they call TPW. That's total precipitable water. This is no wind scoot. It's been a link on our website for maybe a dozen or more years. But anyway, that's what it's set on, and I have it set at surface level. So the way you can tell, and you've seen it before, is we change the scale going up in elevation that you see on the left, and in pressure. You can tell if we're getting pressure, or we're getting moisture at the high levels, then there's a chance of it. But if you get high jet streams and things like that that are blowing all the moisture one way or the other, you're not going to get it. So here we are at the surface, and it is zero moisture now. Again, this was turning blue, moving up through Phoenix and towards Lake Mead and all the last few days. That's over with now as this heat wave started. But I want to move up in elevation. We're going to go up 1,000. You see no changes. You see all of this being blown across and down towards the El Nino, feeding into the storms. The high pressure has got the moisture trapped along the eastern side of the nation, and it's all being pushed that way. Now, it gets important as we get up in elevation, say to 500 HPO, HPA, and nothing. What we've got is the lower level jet streams or lower level high wind patterns pushing all the moisture away. Now, 250 is the telltale point of where your moisture will top out. And the jet stream just increases. Guys, I can stop the wind, but this is dry. And this goes all the way into the Arctic. Remember the videos that I've been working on showing that it's melting up here, record melt, and there's no sign of moisture coming up for this winter's freeze. Both poles are overheating. That's the situation we are at right now. But again, we're going to go back here and go back to the surface, and nothing. You're getting southerly winds moving up through the valleys along the Rockies, but no moisture. So you've got to, this is where you kind of start as you're looking at what's going to happen in the desert Southwest along the Colorado River Basin. You have to start at the top to see what's going to happen at the bottom. And right now you're seeing it. But guys, again, I appreciate you watching. Whatever plans you're going to make about the future of the desert, make sure you get those started just in case, because in this heat without water or air conditioning is going to be brutal. People can't do it. Already there's certain areas, guys, that it's hard to be inside when the grid goes out, period. So we're going to be watching those problems. But remember, it's very important to be prepared. You're going to have water. Some people I've talked about, and they've made comments on our channel, they fill up their pools, even the inflatable, Walmart style pools, those. Some you can get these big water storage tanks, Home Depot, Tractor Supply, something like that. But you're going to have some backup water. Let me tell you something. Here in central Mississippi, we have wells, community wells that are drilled, and you have the big the tanks. And ours has run dry now. We've moved the tank twice in the last 30 years, and the new one is dry, and they've got the money to drill deeper. The federal government has done that for any communities in this problem. But we have an industry in this area. You have poultry farms is the main drain. But everywhere we're seeing the aquifer is getting lower. You're not protected anywhere. Now, we're over here, we've been getting moisture. But the last week or so has been really dry, and you can already tell it. They're putting out water notices for our area to conserve now because of lack of rain. And, of course, it's much worse than that in the desert, but it is everywhere. The planet is getting very warm. We'll talk about that more in the next video. This is a heads up, guys. Be safe.